I want to share two things. Chevra, Rav Shimi, I want to share two thoughts on my mind this Leil Shishi that I want to share with the Chevra. Thought number one is, in Parshas Toldos, we know is the Mechira of Esav sells the Bechira to Yaakov Avinu. He sells, it's a real transaction. And the Torah says that Yaakov Avinu, he buys the Bechira. Michra kayayim es Bechiras chali. Yaakov Avinu says, sell me your Bechira. And he buys the Bechira. And how much does he pay for it? That's a shaila already in the Rishonim. It's the pasuk says, "Vayimkar es b'chayrasei liyankiv." Esav sells the bechayra. The pashtus, what the bechayra is, the pashtus is the right to serve Hashem. That the bechayrim were the kehanim of before kehanim were kehanim, the firstborn were the kehanim that served Hashem, and they did the avodah, and Esav was the bechar, but he sells the bechayra to Yaakov, the ruchniistic right to serve Hashem. He sells to Yaakov Avinu. How much he sells it for is a shaila in the Rishonim. The pasuk says Yaakov gives Esav lechem and etzir adashim. Some Rishonim learn that's what he paid for the bechayra. Some Rishonim, the Rashbam, sounds like that was the party celebrating the sale. He paid him millions of dollars. Bechayra. It cost hundreds of millions. Yaakov was an usher. Some Rishonim learn he paid hundreds of millions of dollars for the Bechayra. He paid crazy money. The party was celebrating the transaction. They sat down to a party and they celebrated the transaction. But many Rishonim learned that that's what he paid. Yaakov nasan le'esav bread and nizir adashim. The lentils is the price that he gave him. Bread and some lentil soup was the price of the bechayra. If you learn it's the price of the bechayra, the cash is that's I know he cheated him. It's true. Esav devalued the bechayra. Esav was willing to sell it, but there's something called I know. If you cheat somebody, they're big shilas. People have little kids trade like cards. My son has gotten in the gadol business, the industry. Yisrael Meir just started Demvach. His older brothers gave him their gedolim pictures, and he's trading. He traded like he did some good deals. It's a complicated thing. They don't know which gedolim, who's from when. He comes with this big news. He gave 2 for 1, and then we all assess the truth. We try to assess. So it happens, youngsters, lahavdil, trade baseball cards, and a kid could trade away a card worth $1,000. He trades it for kids, he could trade it for a soda can, like the cover of a soda bottle. And there's shaylas vaynas, it's vaynas dvarim. And here, where Esav sells the bechayra and he sells it for lechem and nizir adashim, it's the mekach's bottle. If it's more than a sixth of a difference, which here it's worth millions, Esav was in this ayef, he had just done a ritzecha. It's interesting, when somebody does an avera, they detach from the value of mitzvahs. It's very fascinating. He was ayef. Chazal tell us he had done a ritzecha. And somehow, in having done a shvera avera, he was detached from ruchnias. That's what happens from averas. And at that moment, ruchnias wasn't worth, but the shayla is it is worth. So it's aynos dvarim. So it shouldn't, and if it is aynos dvarim, it's aynos. It's mekach is batum, yosim ishtos. So the shayla is, why was a good sale? The afla. The serious question, the afla asked the question. Rav Ezi told me a great story about the afla. I want to share it with the chevra. The afla was a talmud of the Maggid of Mezrich. Who the afla was? He was a talmud of the Maggid of Mezrich. Him and his brother, Rav Shmelko, they were talmidim. The afla and his brother were both talmidim of the Maggid of Mezrich. And Rav Ezi told me a gewaldige maisa. I want to tell you, before I tell you the word from the afla, I'll tell you a maisa Rav Ezi Shlita taught me, so I want to teach it to you. It's gewaldig. I recommend. Yertzai Yomi. I think the maisa he recorded there this year or last, but if I say the maisa wrong, Rav Ezi, correct me. This is the story I heard from my close friend Rav Ezi. He said like this: there was a famous get called the get of Kliva, It was a big shaila if it was a good get, a bad get. But you ask Rav Ezi his shittas about this, a ganze machloikis on this get. The Afla wrote, the Baal Afla wrote a tshuva. You agree to the Afla, you hold it was a good get. The Afla wrote a tshuva saying that the get was a good get. It was a huge controversy of Shimi. There were different gedolim weighed in, and the Afla wrote a tshuva. And he wrote a painstaking, he researched it, and wrote up a tshuva that the get's a good get. That's the Afla held. And then comes, maybe I just relate stories of people being late and stories of people klutziness, like attract me. That klutziness is also Hashgachas Hashem. Somehow the Afla knocked over ink. I don't know if it was him or somebody else, but they wrote, they would dip the pen in the ink and write. And the ink, the whole container of ink spilled and his whole tshuva was ruined. Mamish, he worked hard and hours. It wasn't like today on the computer, if it were you repunch it, the whole thing was ink fell over the whole tshuva and it was all ruined. The Aflad spent a long time on this tshuva, researching and painstakingly writing, and the tshuva was ruined. His Talmidim convinced him that, I don't know if he decided Ashkacha not to write it. Lemais, his Talmidim said, just forget it, Rebbe. Like, there's enough Paiskim speaking about this, and he decided he didn't weigh in on the subject. He had a tshuva written that said that the Afla was maskim, that the get of Kliva was a good get. His ink spilled on the whole tshuva, so it all got ruined, and he didn't weigh in on the subject. That's what
he lived in Yom Kippur at the time.
And he said, forget it. Hashkacha. So now you hear the exact story. Who said forget it? Lemay said Afla never published his opinion. The Frankfurt court, the elders of Frankfurt, my mishpacha is from Frankfurt. My mom is tata, they're from Frankfurt. And the elders of Frankfurt, they got together and they made a cherem that nobody will ever be Rav in Frankfurt if they agree it's a good get. That was the reason they held the get was not a good get. And they made a cherem. They made an exact thing that anybody who came out with a tshuva that the get is a get will never be Rav in Frankfurt. And of course, the Afla became the Rav of Frankfurt, and he was eligible to become Rav. If that tshuva had gotten out, then he would have been Bichlal B'cherem and couldn't have been made Rav. Because that tshuva never came out because the ink spilled on the tshuva, he was able to become Rav, and he became Rav in Frankfurt. When they were looking for a Rav, that Rav was Nifter. The Afla became Rav in Frankfurt, but he was only eligible to be Rav. They had made a cherem that anybody who sided that the get is a valid get cannot be Rav. He had a tshuva like that. He never put it out because the ink spilled. The Afla was worthy of, it was a candidate to Rav. I thought like a shul that we're looking for a Rav. It's a good ma'aseh. Yed zachs hashkacha. And the Afla was shayich to it because he spilled the ink. Naira, nifla, he was shayich to this, and he became the Rav Yetz in Frankfurt. Amazing. Hashkachas Hashem. So did I say the story right? Perfect. So I want to say over this word from the Afla.
Yeah, it was good.
That I'm not weighing in on the shaila of the get of Cleve only. This mice I could testify. Lemaisa, the Afla says a davar nifla. The Afla says that we asked the kasha, how was the sale valid? Like the Rishonim that he bought it for lechem and azir adashim. So he says in Ruchnius, what is the value of things in Ruchnius? The value of things in Ruchnius is how you value it. We've said over here many times, and Afla speaks out the same thing. He's Gradik speaks on a different Mishnah. I don't want to be Ma'arich now, but the Afla says, we've said many times, Lefum Tzara Agra, according to the pain is the reward. The Afla says it's not just that pu'ula that a person does and gives up a lot gets rewarded for that specific Maisa. He says if one time a person gives up a lot from a Maisa mitzvah, I have seen Lamashal, somebody in Atzalah, gives up a lot. I've seen people give up work days, family time to run out and help another Yid. every single time they help another Yid, they get the schar of what they were willing to give up. Lifum tzara, what the tzar you put in once, even other times you don't have that tzar. At Salagayu, one time with Mesiras Nefesh goes on a call. Every call he goes on, even that doesn't have that Mesiras Nefesh, the value of the mitzvah goes by what you valued it at, what you were willing to give for the mitzvah. So if one time a person gave a lot for the mitzvah, the rest of the time he gets that schar. The Afla says, the Mishnah says, on the Mishnah in Avos, have a zayir b'mitzvah kala k'v'chamura. Be careful on a small mitzvah like a big mitzvah. She'enei at yadei matan scharin shel mitzvah, because you don't know the schar of a mitzvah. Frekta Afla, brilliant. The end of that Mishnah says you should make a cheshbon hefsid mitzvah keneged schara. The end of the Mishnah says lahedya that we know the schar for mitzvahs. You're even supposed to calculate it. So the Afla says, I'm confused. The end of the Mishnah says we are capable of knowing schar for mitzvahs. The beginning of the Mishnah says, be careful of mitzvah kalak v'chamusha. Says the Afla, I'm confused. It's a stira minei yubei in the Mishnah. Says the Afla with the beginning of the, we know the schar of mitzvahs. Whatever you value it at. So says the Afla, the beginning saying, if you're zahir in a mitzvah kala, if you're taka careful about a mitzvah and you mamish, this mitzvah is precious, the most in the world, then einat yaden, then the schar is for netzach. Because you're zahir, you care a lot about it. That's einat yaden. It's not a definite, the schar, it's not locked in, the schar of a mitzvah. So she'einat yaden matan schar and shal mitzvahs means it's shaykh, you decide the value. That's what he means, einat yaden. You decide. It's not known. It's not a given. It's not set in stone, the schar of a mitzvah. So if you're very careful and you're into it, so then you set it up. It's adein shish, einat yadeya. He learns the Afla, einat yadeya. When he says you don't know, he means it's not set beforehand. The schar is, according to your zahir, is what you hold of it. How careful, how important you take it. Says the Afla, so I bazai, on the B'chayr is davar ruchni. Whatever you sell it for, that's what it's worth. So there's no way non selling a ruchni is stikazach. If a guy sells his all his ruchnis, their shtarais people take very seriously. You have Yisachar Zvulans. There's people take seriously. People sell the Olam Haba. They sell in Yanei Ruchni. Says the Afla, whatever you sell it for, it's a good sale. Because whatever you sell it for, that's what it be'emes is worth that. Nifladika Hafla on Parshas told us a tremendous practical lesson to us all of our own avodas Hashem, how we value it, how sincerely, how serious, how much hachana for the thing, how much we value the thing. That's how much it's worth. Rav Ezi and I always talk. We just this week, the month of Kislev and Chanukah is coming. It always gets frustrating. People forget. A guy's going here, going there, and has a shaila. Oh, about lighting. By it's such a b'diavad. It's between all our business. So guys, I'm running here, I'm going there, About the lighting, what do I do? You're lighting, and that's the ikr. Each mitzvah, the value of the mitzvahs is its chashivus, its kveyus, it's everything to us. That this is the first thing I'm doing that day. I'm lighting. Everything else, the shaila is not how do you light when you have a chasna and you have a meeting. The shaila is how do I have a meeting when I have lighting? You have a shaila on a meeting, so you have to ask business leaders how to manage meet. The shaila is I have lighting. I have Ner Chanukah. So you could ask, it's not a rub. You don't go to your rub, how do I have a light when I have work? You go to your business people, how do I have business when I have neighbors? But same then, different business people give different aids what to do. The kfiyus, the mitzvah, each mitzvah, the value of a mitzvah is the kfiyus, the sincerity, the seriousness, what we value it as, that is the kaiveya of the value of mitzvahs. This afla is nifla, it's such a cool afla, whatever you sell it for, that's what it's worth. So there's no non ruchnis. If you sell it for a bowl of lechem, you nail it. It's an amazing hafla that any price you charge, that's what it's taka worth. Such an amazing hafla. That's the first the first thing I want to share with the Chevra. The second thing on Parshas told us that I wanted to share with the Chevra is something that's bedafka important to me. I heard this from my son. I hope I'm saying it right. I heard this from my son Yankiv. If I'm not saying it exactly right, but I bedafka this word that I heard from my son is priceless. And if I'm not saying it exactly right, but the inyan, I think, is geschmack, and I wanted to share this with the Chevra. I visited somebody today. Somebody's working on himself, and I had a beautiful, I'm very inspired, very uplifting. He described having a meeting with his tata last night, and they spoke very openly and honestly. It was like nifla for the father and the son. I heard from both sides. I heard from the tata and the zon, and both sides described like a very, very preciousness of this meeting. So I want to share this vart with the Chevra on this note. The Medrash on the Parsha, everybody knows the Medrash, that it says on Rivka Imenu, it says she gives to Yaakov Avinu. She wants Yaakov to go in and take the brachas that Yitzchak Avinu is going to give to Esav. So it says, Rivka Amral Yaakov B'nah, I heard your father speaking to Esav, and he said, bring in food, and you'll make matamim, and I'll give you a bracha. V'ata b'ni, says Rivka Imenu to Yaakov v'nishma b'koili, and listen to what I'm going to tell you. Go to the tzayin and take shnei gudei izim, and you'll make matamim l'avicha. And she says, so Yaakov Avinu says to Rivka, but my brother is a person. Esav Achi Ish Sayer, he's a man of a lot of hair. Vanoichi Ish Chalak, I don't have that hair. Me'ula Yemusheni Avi, my father may feel me, and he'll see, he'll call me out. So it's interesting. Rivka takes, very interesting, in Pshat. I read these psukim, and I don't have an answer right now. In Pshat, I'm very bothered. Rivka tells Yitzchak, go steal the brachas. And Yaakov Avinu says, Mama, Tata's going to feel me and see I'm not Esav. L'maise v'tikach Rivka's big day Esav b'na agadla chamudais, asher ita babayis. And she dresses Yaakov b'na katan. She ends up giving the begadim of Esav that was with her babayis and dresses Yaakov b'nai katan. So she ends up l'chayra addressing the feeling he's wearing big day Esav. I guess Yaakov's worried under the begadim, but nonetheless, it says that Rivka gives big day Esav, but it says asher ita babayis that were with her in the house. Says the Medrash, what are these begadim asher ita babayis that were with her in? Very interesting lashon. She gives big day Esav b'nai agadol. What's asher ita babayis? The clothing that were with her in the house. Says the Medrash that Reb Shimon ben Gamliel, Reb Shimon the son of Gamliel says asher ita babayis means that Esav had a special garment that he used to keep in Beis Aviv, and whenever his tata would ask him for a shlichus, he would put on these fancy begadim. So that's a shar'ita babayis. They were like clothing that Esav kept. Esav was running around. But he had begadim, the Medrash says, that stayed in the house. And whenever he would come home, he would dress up special begadim to serve Yitzchak Avinu. That's what Esav would do. Says of Shimon Gamliel in the Medrash that I didn't have the kibbut aveim 100th of Esav. He says, I serve my father begadis meluchlachim. My clothing are dirty. And Esav asher ita babayis noira. Esav had a special begadim that whenever he would serve his tate, he had begadim noim. He had very nice clothing. So my son told me from a sefer, he said, was bothered by that. So why didn't Rav Shimon Gamliel do that also? Why didn't Rav Shimon Gamliel also do that? So where Begadim Naim. He says, I didn't have 100 to kibbut aveim of Esav, because Esav Asherita Babayis, he had clothing, mamish, kibbut aveim, he had special begadim that were in the house, and he put on special begadim to serve Yitzchak. And Rav Shimon Gamliel was nishtoimeh with the kibbut aveim that he would wear begadim meluchlachim, dirty begadim. So it's taka taina. What are you wearing? And meluchlachim, you're wearing dirty begadim. Put on a clean. Taka makes sense. What Esav did. You're serving your tata. Put on nice begadim. No, he'd wear begadim meluchlachim. So the pshat my son told me is nifla. He said, if I'm saying it right, even the Indian that Esav would ask from a shaylas to Yitzchak, what's happening here? And Chazal call it, in this certainly wearing begadim noim, Chazal call it tremendous madregas of kibbut av. And Esav had nisyonis. Esav was Yisrael Mumar, he had nisyonis. But Esav l'shem kibbut aveim was show his father a good front. To show his father shouldn't have tsar. How many people, I don't want to give my father tsar. The yid like dresses up, puts on his yarmulke, puts on his hat. The tata shouldn't have tsar. So Esav would wear begadim naim is the pshat. He'd put on good begadim, means the begadim is what he's showing his tata. The behaviors, he'd wear begadim naim is the mitzius that for kibbut aveim he would show his tata like a very good front. That was his kibbut aveim, that it shouldn't hurt his father. And Rabbi Shimon Gamliel saying this taka madrega of kibbut aveim like that. The father, tata shouldn't be hurt, he shouldn't know flaws. But Rav Shimon Gamliel, Afal Pikain, didn't do that. Esav blibes Esav. Esav remains Esav. And I happened to have seen one of the Mefarshim, I didn't like the teretz. I mamish today was learning the parsha, and I saw one of the Mefarshim he asked it, why didn't the kibbut aveim of Esav, why wasn't it mashpia? What if it's Yisrael Mumar? Schar mitzvah, it's a good kasha. The kasha I liked, I didn't like this sefer's teretz. Why wasn't the mitzvah of kibbut aveim mashpia on Esav to make him more holy, to be mashpia? According to what was saying, the kibbut aveim was at a stiff price, not telling his tata, this is what's going on by me. In his kibbut aveim, he was giving up on sharing with his father who he was and what he was. And Rav Shimon Gamliel says, I wear begadim luchlachim when I serve my tata. I come to my tata and I say, tata, this is me. And he's not willing, even for kibbut aveim, and there could be cheshbainis, but this is me. The honesty and presenting to his father. So he comes not in begadim luchlachim. He comes in begadim luchlachim. I have seen today many of us, and I'm not promoting. We all have to. There's derech eretz, the halachas of kibbut aveim, and their halachas how to speak to parents. And many people say over, we would never talk to our parents that way, and certainly I'm not here promoting to talk to our parents kifi the halacha. But I want to say there's a madrega that goes on today of honesty, of people expressing to their parents, of sharing what they're feeling, who they are. There's such a possibility today for us all. I felt today to come to the chevra and hearing a son speak to his tat, but a son looking his father in the face and sharing in an earnest and honest way. I wanted to share that with the chevra, the possibility of today. The possibility of today, a generation that's feeling and resolving and getting to deep places, that we have the possibility, as many of us as parents and all of us as children and parents, of expressing in honest and open ways and really understanding, so the parent could be of assistance and encouragement to our children, but really understanding them. So I love this pshat, begadim meluchlachim. Rav Shimon Gamliel said, I would serve my father begadim meluchlachim. Is it a pegam in kibbut aveim? He would do the best he can. The tsar to the father, but the father was mechanech the son. The father could speak to the son. That was the begadim luchlachim. I think that I say it over. I think it's nifla. I think it's nifla today. Today I felt that I have to share this with my friends. When somebody I'm close to described an open conversation with his tata, that was painful, that was done by Ifin Derech Eretz, painful for the Tata, the son, but so much was accomplished that Rav Shimon Gamliel was not willing. The begadim naim of Esav, the Esav, I don't want to hurt, but then he didn't express and talk and work out. Now, Avada b'ofen shall covered. Avada b'ofen shall covered. But I think there's a lot to learn from this vert. I think it's very nageya. Bismaneinu and yeah, I'm thinking. yes. Yeah, even in the service there's a bechin of 1,000. I'm thinking about that, 1,000. Yes. Yeah, be'emes. There's a lot to think about and a lot to learn from this. I wanted to share this with my chaverim. I wanted to close and welcome. Reb Chaim's adding, the Avinu Shebashamayim, the sugya, is very nageya. I'm thankful. I want to say to the Chabur, this beautiful Chabur we have, that Reb Chaim is here. As long as we have him, we'll hold on to him as long as we have him, but I'm thankful that Reb Chaim has joined our Chabura. I want to thank Rav Avi. Weekly, he comes, he organizes, he gets the food. I thank you, Rav Avi. Yashar Koyach Rabbi Say. Good Shabbos.